Just give us your general thoughts on kind of where we're headed for the next 3, 6, 9 months, kind of seeing everything in the market structure, not necessarily price wise, but just what you're seeing kind of on chain and your overall feeling.
Yeah, so I mean, I would really love, honestly, I think just some more consolidation, as maddening as it is for some that want to see us go parabolic. I think just from kind of what we're seeing on chain from the derivative side of things, where traders keep getting ahead of themselves, I think we're due for some choppiness. I think a lot of the speculators, it'd be great if they left the market, and I'm not hoping anybody leaves or gets burned, but I think some boredom would do us good. And I honestly think the next kind of bullish catalyst is you're going to see the Fed try to hike. They're going to try to taper their asset purchases, and just off of going off historical precedent over the last really 20 years, anytime the Fed has tried to pull back the stimulus, pull back the punch bowl, it blows up in their face. And I don't think this time is different at all. And so I think that's really when you see Bitcoin just explode, is when the taper, the rate hikes just blow up in their face, and that's when Bitcoin is going to get bid, probably similar to March of 2020, when everything sells off and then Bitcoin recovers first and then outperforms everything. I would imagine that would repeat again, and so that's kind of my sentiment over the next really year or so. I mean, however long the timeline takes, I think Bitcoin is more of a macro asset than ever, and I think that's really bullish.
Gotcha.
Dylan, I've seen some charts recently about just like the general market of the S&P 500 and Bitcoin and the correlation with that. What do you think around Bitcoin being correlated to other assets or in general to the overall market structure?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Bitcoin increasingly, as it grows in market cap, is just a function, I believe, of the liquidity of the kind of the everything bubble. In traders' terms, Bitcoin is just a high beta risk asset. And over the short to medium term timeframes, that is true, right? In March of 2020, when Bitcoin sold off really first, it almost front ran everything selling off. It bottomed before everything else. People said the Bitcoin experiment failed. It's not recession proof. It's not a hedge. It's not a diversification. And when in reality, Pomp, I actually remember you having a great post about this. It was just a liquidity crunch. The dollar got bid. And so I think that's what you're really seeing, is that in the everything bubble, everything's going to go up. And then if credit contracts, everything goes down. And really the outperformers are kind of the reaction when they respond to the bust. And so I think that's unchanged, and Bitcoin will draw down if equities go down 20%. And that's a good thing, because they're going to have to reinflate everything just with, the political incentives and everything else. And so, over the short to medium term, volatility or correlations to other risk assets don't disprove the kind of the Bitcoin thesis that it's the best money the world has ever seen. It just kind of reinforces how overextended or how far gone we are in this kind of fiat credit everything bubble.
Yeah, I think that what you're specifically referring to is in March of 2020, I literally wrote the piece, and it was like explaining what liquidity crises are. And I went back and I looked at the 2008, 2009 global financial crisis. And I was like, hey, look, when people get scared, when there's uncertainty, when there's some sort of fear in the market, they end up selling their assets and they go for the dollar. They want security. And so like, we're in a liquidity crisis. Don't be, kind of short-term thinker, understand what's happening. Prices may go down, more, but ultimately the liquidity crisis does get solved, especially if the government steps in. And then that day, Bitcoin fell 50%. And I got to say, even though I, conceptually understood what was happening, it still doesn't feel good, right?
No.
You buy after like the 20% down, then it goes down another 20%. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm a genius. Then it goes down more. You're like, dude, what is this going? How low is this thing going? And is this maybe not a liquidity crisis, but are we watching it go to zero? And obviously, the what I call the fear buys ended up being pretty good, but it's crazy. Even when that this is how liquidity crisis work, they still don't feel good for anyone who's living through it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why it's also important to not be overexposed. I mean, I think we're all extremely bullish on Bitcoin, but even having 2x leverage on your Bitcoin position, right? Where if you're allocated to Bitcoin with 200% of your net worth is pretty dangerous, right? Because these events can occur, right? Bitcoin was on a Saturday night 2 weeks ago, was down 20%, right? Like, these things are going to happen again, whether it's natively in Bitcoin with the derivatives market, or the macro uncertainty causes Bitcoin to completely unwind and it kind of cascades on each other, right? So, always having that pristine collateral, the Bitcoin that you're stacking, if that event occurs, then you can take advantage of that increasingly so with, the ability to collateralize your stack, get fiat liquidity, all these things. Bitcoin's increasing like financialization. It's actually a net positive, but you never want to leave, you never want to become a forced seller in one of these events. It's the worst thing you can do. And so I think that's just important to say.